Hey, my name is Gaia Athena, and in this video I'm bringing you part 3 of my 2020 reading statistics. In this graph you see the language of the books that I read. So I read books in both English and in Dutch. Dutch is my first language, English is my second language. I started to read books in English in my later years of high school. I was taught English in high school and also a bit in primary school. And from, I think, when I was an older teenager, I started to read more and more books in English. In part because some of those books that I really wanted to read, that I was recommended by people at the time, they were fantasy books and not all of them were translated. And also the English books were cheaper, and for me at the time, I didn't have much money. So, and at that time I stopped being a member actually of the library back then, because I had kind of read most of the things they had that I was interested in, sort of thing, if that makes sense. Anyway, so in 2015, 2016, I read quite a lot of Dutch books. And this is because I went to the library a lot in those years. And since I live in the Netherlands, my local library mostly has Dutch books. But in 2020, I could not go to the library because of the pandemic. So I mostly read my own books. And I think out of the books that I own that I haven't read yet, I think I have more English books than Dutch books. Because out of my read books, I have also a lot of Dutch books that I read as a child, or that are picture books that I was read 2 out of, if that makes sense. Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's the category of combination, because in 2016 I read one book from the library that had both Dutch and English in it. This graph shows you the original language, and as you can see, I did not track this in before 2017. So this is the original language that the book was in, first written in. Now, a large part of it is English, and also quite a big part of it is Dutch. And well, you know, that makes sense to me because I read books in those two languages. So then I tend to gravitate more towards books written by Dutch authors and books written by authors who write in English. But I did read some books as well with other languages. The variety is a bit less in 2020 because I tend to find more books from like different languages at the library. And like I said before, I couldn't go in 2020. So in 2020, Japanese is quite a big block because I read quite a few manga, such as Death Note. But in earlier years, that was a larger variety. Well, as you can see by the languages on the right, all of these languages are languages that have come up in my reading, if that makes sense, as original language, at least once. So yeah, I think this will become more interesting as we have more data in later years, but yeah. Then we get to original versus translation. And in 2020, I mostly read books in their original language, about 75%, and so a core was a translation. And in early years, I read more translations, particularly 2015, 2016. And I think this is because at my local library, I am more likely to find translations. And like other books I might not have heard of, because this should be said, but I get a lot of book recommendations from BookTube, and a lot of people on BookTube don't really talk that much about translated fiction all that much. Some people do, but most of it is about books written in English that were originally written in English, if that makes sense. It's very American-centric. Does that kind of make sense? Anyway. So I get most of my translations from the library, as well as, of course, some books that I own. But yeah, I am pretty satisfied still with having a quarter translated fiction and 3/4 original. It should be said that if I buy a book myself and I have to choose between buying the original English version or Dutch translation, I tend to buy the original English version. But at the library, I tend to just borrow what they've got, sort of thing. And of course, if the book is originally in Dutch, I tend to read it in Dutch and not in English, because that doesn't really happen that often. Now we get to the country of the author. So we have a whole bunch of countries here, and I abbreviate them, which may not always be clear to other people what all of that is. And the very top one is !/combination. So that is either if I really don't know, or when an author is from multiple countries, or for example with like an anthology where you have, let's say, 10 different authors who worked on the book, and they are from various countries, sort of thing. That's, I have to classify as that then. So we can see quite a large part of my reading is from the United States. But that percentage has actually declined since 2013 by looks of it. And I read some books from the UK. That's in orange. Then we have Netherlands. And then we have Japan. So in 2020, the United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, and Japan were more than 80% of my reading. Like I said before, in the library I tend to find a larger variety of countries. Though not always. But in 2015-2016, I read a lot of books from Italy, and those were mainly the Stilton books that I read in those years. So books by Geronimo Stilton and Thea Stilton, and also the series from Oscar Tortuga and the Carrot. So I do feel that this graph could definitely do with more variety. I'm not too dissatisfied with this graph, though I do feel that I would like to have more variety here in the future. Then we get to the age range. So I have 4 age ranges that I classify in. So I classify as adult, young adult, children's, and infants. Now infants are mostly like picture books. And children's for me are, let's say, between the ages of 4 and 12. So that is what also the Dutch libraries call children's. And then young adult is from 12 to 18. Now I know that some people make that seem like just 15 to 18. But again, when I was young, the library classified it as that. Though my current library, they subdivide it into between 12 and 15. And 15 to 18. But anyway, this is just what I use. And, you do what you want. As you can see in the graph, I feel that since 2014, I have started to read books for a variety of ages. Whereas in 2013, I mostly read adult books. But then really starting in 2014, I started to read also young adult books. In 2015, which is when I had my library subscription, I read a lot of children's books. 2016 as well. And also in 2020, I read all 3 age ranges quite a bit. And I only really read a lot of picture books in 2017, and not so much in the last couple of years. This was the end of part 3. Hopefully a part 4 should be up soon as well. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment if you like, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!